one of the problems, especially in leaders, is leaders love processes, they say out loud. We love processes. They're the best. They don't love following processes. Leaders tend to not enjoy that part. They like to create and engineer processes and then hope everybody follow those processes to the same heart and soul of which they created it.
Welcome back to the Culture Base podcast. I'm Dustin, he's Blake, and we are at the Culture Base. We're back here with episode 106, How Processes and Systems Affect Your Culture More Than You Think. Before we get into that, I'll remind you that we're here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop a scalable team to get them there. And newsflash on the newsflash, if you go to theculturebase.com/updates, you can be the first one to know about new product releases, new things that we're working on, new opportunities, yada, yada, yada. Be in the first to know club. Go to theculturebase.com/updates today. All right, Blake, let's get into today's episode, how systems and processes affect your culture more than you think. I want to kick us off with this great quote from James Clear. If you don't know who James Clear is, I know you know who he is, Blake, and even if you don't, pretend like you do right now.
Oh, yeah, James.
Yeah, your good old buddy James. James is a best-selling author of the book Atomic Habits. And I love what he says here about habits and goals and systems. He says that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I think that sets the tone for today.
Man, that is such a good quote. Like, first off, James Clear is amazing. If you've never read Atomic Habits, then what we're about to talk about today is going to seem like brand new to you. Okay. You're going to be like, what is a process? This is crazy. This is what my business is missing. Okay. Read that book. It's fantastic. One thing, as we dive in today, we're going to start talking about what are the cultural aspects of systems and what are the signals that you need to look at and think about. And I actually had something happen this week. So by the way, if you're like, oh, just get all my systems in place and then make sure all the cultural things are good, and then I never have to worry about anything ever again. Okay, well, you're living in a fantasy world and business lives in a real world. And so you have to be constantly tending the garden. From year to year, the gardener knows that they can't just rely on everything they did last year for their garden. They have to go spend time thinking about, hey, it's this year. What do I need to do and refresh? Do I need to plant things in a different location? Do I need to tend the soil differently? Should I let the ground rest a little bit here? You have to think through all those things all the time. Okay. So part of having good culture is not doing less. It's being more intentional with the stuff that you're doing. One thing that happened to me this week, and I'll start off, if I could give a big heading for this story, it would be think. That's it. Okay.
That's clickbait.
That's it. Think. So we are on our team. We've been doing forecasting in a new way. And so we're creating this new process and everyone's getting commitments and we are all on the same page. And I dove in and created this whole commitment sheet for how we're going to go forecast and how we're going to execute. And so we created this. I created this process quickly with all the things I wanted. And then, and this is just going to give you a heads up. Okay. I love AI. Everyone on this call, all two of us love AI. And I think that AI will cause us not to think sometimes like this. And so it said, oh, great commitment sheet, Blake. And I was like, thanks, Claude. And it was like, here's what you need. You need a signature line at the bottom. And I was like, what a great thing to add there. That makes so much sense. So I added it in, laid the whole thing out. Everyone was like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is cool. And I was like, and then you sign your name to it. And everyone was like, got quiet. And I was like, oops, something happened here. What happened here? And so I started digging in. I was like, well, what's up? Are you guys afraid of committing to this? They're like, this is a forecast. Like, what are you saying we're committing to? And also, do you not trust us? And I was like, oh, I did not think. Again, I did not think about the trust aspect of how this would impact them. That is a great thing to think about, is in this process, does this say I'm trusting? Or does this say I'm not trusting? It's really important to think through those cultural signals. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I hear a lot there. I hear that thinking time is important, something that you and I talk a lot about offline. I always hear any story like that through the lens of intentionality. It certainly wasn't your intention to give a signal of that you don't trust your team. Having that platform in which your team can give you that feedback is of the most importance, right? Otherwise, you would have just shipped it and everyone would have been like, great, another harebrained scheme from Blake, and he doesn't trust us also. So just add that one to the bucket of why we don't like him or this place. So, you know what I mean? So I think everything that we're talking about today, I mean, everything that we talk about in the previous 105 episodes is centered around intentionality. If you go back to the James Clear quote, you know, that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. What he's essentially saying there is if you don't put forth the proactive intentionality to build systems around what you want to create and how you want to live and the standards that you and your business want to uphold, then then that's the level in which you're going to fall to. Right. So, and if you don't have any, then you're at ground level or below, right? But you won't be able to rise up unless you have those from there. So yeah, I think there's a few points that we need to get into today, and I think your story kicks us right off into the first one, that systems are cultural signals, right? That every process that your team interacts with communicates those expectations, right? And communicating expectations, I talk to my son about this all the time. I'm like, what expectations do you have in your head of how such and such is going to turn out if you go and do this? And he'll say the expectations. I say, great, get rid of those expectations because that's not what this is for. But there are other times where there are expectations. And a lot of times as leaders, I think leaders are the one of the prime sins of a leader is to have unspoken and unclear expectations of their team and their business, because it's lived rent free between their ears for so long, or not even for so long, but just so constant. Maybe it's like over the last 36 hours, this is all I've been thinking about. So now this is the most important thing, right? And then by the time they communicate it, they're communicating it at step 6 of the thought, right? Because you've been thinking through steps 1 through 5. And so you're like, and another thing. And they're like, we don't even know what the thing is. So you can't add a thing to a thing that we don't know what the thing is. That's like the s'more problem, right? How can I s'more something if I never had any to begin with? So yeah, leaders have this, I'm just going to make up a word. They got s'more disease.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's important for us to understand that just because we think it doesn't mean we communicated it. And just because we communicated it doesn't mean that it was clear. And that's what you see in Blake's story here of this thinking and understanding like, hey, I communicated it, but it's not clear. And got some feedback on it, made it clear. And now we have this system. Without that system, I wouldn't have those cultural signals in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I think another part to this, kind of moving on here to just the friction of processes too. That whole like set it and forget it mentality happens with processes. Like we kind of talked about in the beginning, like a gardener needs to reevaluate the landscape often and not just jump right in as if everything's just been flowing through the winter the same as it was through the spring and summer. And so we've got to look at things to see what's clunky, what's outdated, what's not, like Dustin just mentioned, what's not clear, what's not been documented. Where's frustration happening? Sometimes those frustrations our process frustrations. And we just don't know it because we're not in the daily minutia of what a process takes. One of the problems, especially in leaders, is leaders love processes, they say out loud. We love processes. They're the best. They don't love following processes. Leaders tend to not enjoy that part. They like to create and engineer processes and then hope everybody follow those processes to the same heart and soul of which they created it. But they don't. And they don't understand what the heart and soul was of the process anyway. Leaders tend to drop the ball here because they become more like process engineers instead of outcome drivers. Someone who really cares about a process because of the outcome it brings, not because of the brilliance of the sophistication of the process they created. They think, what is the thing we need on the other side? And so they're paying attention to it. They didn't set it and forget it. They created it, and then they measured it, and then they tracked it, and then they evaluated, and then they, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different mindset altogether. And so one of the problems is those in charge of the process aren't driving it correctly and aren't paying attention to it and aren't truly gardening it.
Yeah. And I would say part of that gardening too is awareness that it exists. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Because there's so many processes that are made at the top of the food chain and organizational structure, right? That the people who are actually supposed to be using the processes don't even know that they exist. And so they've created their own over time because out of necessity, because we didn't have anything. So this is how we always do it. Right. And then you go, well, no, there's a process for that. Oh, I didn't know we had a process for that. And now you got to backtrack. Right. And so I think a lot of the friction that we see, Blake, as we're working with organizations is that there is a process, but no one either A, knows about it, or B, references it. Right. And we always talk about, when we talk about processes, Blake, we talk about you introduced this to me, that the process is like when we lay out a process for somebody, that there's 4 parts to make it uber clear and usable. Right. There's the steps. Right. That's the step-by-step directions. Right. Think that you got a piece of furniture from a store that you have to put together. Right. And it gives you all the steps to put that thing together. Right. Then there's the checklist. That's basically the steps simplified down into what has to happen repeatedly every single time so that you don't forget. Think about flight plans here, right? This is where like the pilot who's flown, 100,000 hours or whatever, and still has a flight plan, still has a checklist every single time he fires that up, or he's killing a bunch of people, right? So there's the steps, there's the checklist, right? Then there's a visual, right? This is for our visual learners. Raise your hand in the back. We always sit in the back. That way we can see the full picture, right? For our visual learners, it's how does this thing connect to the whole, right? Where is it coming from? Where is it going to? And how does it move along from one part to the next? And then there's a course, which is literally, I talk about my clients all the time, is to record everything. The things that you think are stupid and mundane, if you fire up a Loom video and narrate yourself through it, then guess what? You just created a course for the system. You can drop that video into AI and it can give you the steps, the checklist, and the visual. And in less than 5 minutes, you have a whole fully documented process of whatever it is that you think you need to delegate.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say about this, because we just experienced this, and like, this is not a plug for the culture base and using the culture base, but at the same time it is. So my organization, we had someone who was very high level who put in their notice, and we had just finished doing all the process stuff, all the videos, all the content that we needed, developing, capturing process, building out the course, doing those things. Wow. I'm sure there was intentionality to get us there, but man, was that at the right time, having all that stuff in place so that we could rely, oh, hey, we've got that in place. We're good to go. And the people stepping into that place, now we jump into videos. We talk about, hey, what is this? How do you, okay. And then we dive in. Literally on my to-do list for this week is diving into one of the platforms. And I know I'm going to those videos to check them out and to understand it better. So highly suggest what Dustin's talking about here. And also, if you're like, that just sounds like a lot of work. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay, so don't let that be a good enough reason to do nothing. Because if I had nothing in the past month, it would have been you would see more bags under my eyes. I promise. Okay. Yeah. One other thing I think is important to say here, because I think that the friction problem is a yin and yang mentality. Okay. So we talk about the friction problems of bad process or clunky process or not clear or not thought through or whatever else. But there is also, I've come to learn that there is another side to that. And that is the people who always are like, oh, a process can fix this. A process can fix this. There is no way that great process, even the best process, best system, can outlive poor execution. I would rather a mid process and great execution than a great process and shit execution. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, like, a team that is willing to execute, and this is why it's important to get everyone on the same page with these processes, a team who's willing to execute, when they meet the gray area, they're going to figure it out. A team that is like, I'm just doing the process, when they hit the gray area, will stop or do something that you'd be like, what? Why did we do that? Right? So there is a balance to that. And you have to be able, as the leader, to identify, is this moment one of a process issue, or is this moment a people execution issue?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think next, Blake, the question begs itself is, when do we create a process? How do we know that we need a process for something? And what's really at the heart of this question that we get from our clients all the time is, do we need to be like, they're not coming out and asking us this, but the heart of the question is it reactive or proactive, right? Do we react every time we see something and go, oh, we need a system for that. We need a system for that. Or are we proactive in going, I can see, this is where leaders' strength lies, right? I can see the vision of where we're going 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And I'm going to build the system that we're going to need for that point now so that we can kind of grow into that, right? That's what all of my clients, like, if they're like, I don't know if I need systems or not, I just buy the book for them called E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and I just send them that, and I go, tell me if you think you need systems after that, right? Because it's documenting every part of your business so that you can grow it. Right. So I think there is this balance. There is this tension here. There is going to be reactive systems as well, Blake. But what we've discovered is that it doesn't need to be, hey, this happened once, and so we're gonna, it's this one thing in this one little minute percentage corner of the business, and now we're gonna blow everything up to create a system to fix that one problem that was isolated. Right. Now, if it's a large, like, let's say you are a carpet installer, right? And the one mistake was you forgot to bring the carpet to the job site. Kind of a big deal, right? So maybe there needs to be a system to make sure that you actually get that carpet to the job site. Right. But if it's like, oh man, we left our cutters, right? Okay. Don't forget your cutters next time. Maybe that's it.
You need to create a 10-step process to go grab your cut. Like,
exactly.
There is a part that we like, that's not trust right there. No. If they can't bring the bare minimum, and you're having the problem of them bringing bare minimum, they're not the person.
They're not the person. Right?
Yeah. The one thing I'd say about this on the reactive versus proactive is, Dustin said it, but both require vision. So proactive is vision of what could be. Reactive is vision of what is. So can I see, and am I being attentive?
Can you fully see the big picture of what's happening here?
That's right.
Right. Because you don't want to get so isolated and minute and go like, oh, it's just the fact that the carpet didn't show up onto that particular, like, no, you got to zoom back here and go, you know what? It's because we didn't get it from the supplier in time. And because we didn't get it to the supplier in time, it didn't make it onto the truck. And because it didn't make it onto the truck, like, you have to see that bigger picture of what, so that the problem isn't the guy loading it on the van. It's a supplier issue, right?
Yeah. And are you using anything to capture trends. As a leader, you should be capturing data. You should be measuring. If you're like, oh, measuring's other people's problems, well, then you're not a good leader. You need to be measuring and keeping an eye on those things so that you have good data to work with. So is this a one-time event? Oh, that was the first time in 10 years this has happened. Probably doesn't need a process. If all of a sudden 3 times in a row, that thing happens, something's amiss. Now you have data. Basically, like, and I don't remember what book it was that said this, but they talked about how nothing's a trend until you've got 3. Okay. Like until you got 3 of them, you don't have a trend. Okay. So start using those mentalities. And now if you're like, oh, they forgot their cutters, that seems like an isolated thing. If 10 times out of 10, they forgot their cutters, that's not an isolated event. That's a trend. And you need to start capturing and understanding what vision should I have to create a better system so that we don't keep having this. Or do I get rid of the person and find a person who just knows to bring their cutters?
Right. Right. So there's some best practices we want to wrap up with. Involving your team when appropriate always helps build buy-in. Is, they don't need to have it every single time, but ownership will drive engagement. So the people who are going to be using it, bring them the beta, get their insight in it, get their buy-in on it before it rolls out. That's a huge culture win every single time. Obviously, you want to have some type of, probably in your operations department, you need to have some type of process audit. Do we use this process? Do we not? Is it outdated or is it working? Is it functional? Is it no longer relevant? Like, is it broken? Does it need fixing? Like, you need to be proactive about seeing those things. And that's where you can really empower your team. They can come to you and say, I think we need to make this tweak on this process. There's a better way. I see a better way. Promotes engagement and promotes innovation and vision amongst your entire team. And then, like I said, rhythms of review, right? Involve your team, regular review cadence, keeping those things and culture and operations aligned. Hey, are our systems helping you do this job better? Or are they slowing you down? Or are they hindering you? Are they making you love this place more, or are they making you hate this place more? Not saying that you need to veer to the left or the right, but getting that feedback, that's part of the data. That's part of the trends that Blake is talking about. And I want to end with, we mentioned 2 books, and I want to add one more book based on what Blake just said, but Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read it, I don't know what you're doing. Listen to this podcast, stop and go read that instead. E-Myth, Michael Gerber, and then Measure What Matters by John Dewar. That's actually on my reading list now. I heard like a podcast about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm adding that to my reading list. And so when you said that, I'm like, it's got to be good, right? Google uses it, so
it's good.
Yeah. So that's what I got. Blake, you got anything else for this one?
Nope.
All right, next week we're going to get into learned skills and behaviors. Next episode, learned skills and behaviors. We're going to talk about what does it mean to have someone. We talk a lot about this, right, in the A-Player series that we just finished up, right? Like, how do we learn some of these skills and behaviors amongst our team, and how can we promote those learned skills and behaviors? Because, like we say all the time, the perceived opportunity of growth and development is a major attractor and detractor to your best people wanting to stay in your organization. So we'll talk to you about that next time on the Culture Based Podcast. Have a great week.